If you're at all compelled about the longevity and expansion of the Mizzah Tee Show, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Links below.
Hey there, fools. Big T here, and I'm back with another video. I'm going to try to do this video as quick as possible. I'm going to be touching up on some things I said on my live stream. Mainly the Nintendo Online rant that I had. Just going to be going over that stuff just in case you guys didn't watch the live stream. So I'm just going to go over that again. Just kind of reiterate my issues with Nintendo more quickly than I did in the live stream. So mainly, you know, when I talk about Nintendo's online, I'm trying to hold them to their own standards and not the competition, because a lot of times when you do that, Nintendo fans will say, well, you know, if you want a carbon copy of the other guys, blah, 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 blah. So what I'm not going to do is give them an out by saying, look at the other guys, look what they're doing. I'm just going to hold Nintendo to their own standards, which is, you know, not the highest bar when it comes to online, but a pretty decent bar. You know, you guys know me, you know, you've been around a while, you know, I am a big Nintendo fan. I've been, you know, a Nintendo fan for quite a while. I was definitely a Nintendo nerd. I read up on a lot of things and about Nintendo back in the mid to late 90s. That's when I became an uber fan. So when I talk about them, it's from a place of knowledge and a place of love, because I love Nintendo. And I remember the things that they were doing back in those days. You know, most Nintendo consoles have an expansion port on the bottom, because they, you know, they did a plethora of certain things. They allowed Nintendo to, mostly in Japan, because a lot of this stuff didn't come this way, but mostly in Japan, they allowed for downloading of games and whatnot from their network. You know, this was like before the internet was a big thing. You know, Sega had this thing, I think it was called Sega TV back in the day, where you could rent games through your console itself, and Nintendo was doing similar things. And if you remember, the Famicom had a disk drive system, which allowed a lot of really cool, innovative things, a lot of cool, innovative features for the Famicom. I won't go into all that. If you want to look that up, you can, but the Famicom disk system was pretty damn cool. And they continued that on. If you go into the N64, the 64DD was an add-on drive for the 64. Again, I won't go into the details of that, but I just want to talk about how Nintendo had some really cool, innovative ideas before they even jumped onto online mainstream-wise. The 64DD would allow you to create custom tracks in F-Zero X for N64, and you can upload those tracks to the internet for your friends to download or other people to download and play. And that was pretty ahead of its time. And, you know, going into the GameCube era, I was expecting Nintendo to expand on that. Obviously, the 64DD didn't do well. I think they should have gave it a chance in the West, but they didn't. And, you know, so I figured the next console would definitely go into online, because you had the Dreamcast that was doing it. Obviously, the PlayStation 2, they had their online service. They had the Microsoft Xbox was coming in, and they, you know, they basically pushed broadband internet in houses. So that was something I thought Nintendo would definitely do. And of course, Nintendo did have an expansion slot on the bottom of the N60 or of the GameCube that allowed for online play, but they didn't do anything with it. I think the only games that used it were the Fantasy Online games, which was or Fantasy Star, excuse me, online games, which was Sega. So it was pretty crazy to me that they had this console, basically, especially coming off of what the N64 was, which was a, you know, fun machine, they called it, basically a multiplayer machine. We thought, you know, going into the next console era, they would definitely expand with that multiplayer into online, but they didn't. You had great games that could have really utilized online, could have really pushed the GameCube to sell way more than it did. Games like Mario Kart Double Dash, F-Zero GX, obviously. Super Smash Bros. Melee. I mean, that game would have been huge online for the GameCube back in the day. It would have been a huge selling point. And Nintendo just didn't want to, you know, they wanted to stay stuck in their ways. They didn't want to push online. But they finally got into online with the Wii. And the Wii obviously didn't have the capabilities of the other consoles. It only had like 88 megabytes of RAM, so there was only so much they can do with it online. So it had online hiccups and whatnot, but it did really did some really cool things, like obviously the Virtual Console, where you can download games. It gave us WiiWare for original new titles from indie companies and you know, bigger publishers. And it did have online multiplayer finally for games like Smash Brothers Brawl and a plethora of other games that came to the system, including Call of Duty. So, and it had the Wii Speak, so you can do online, you can do voice chat on the Wii. You could gift games. You can buy a game and then gift it to a friend. Had all these really good features coming from the GameCube era, which didn't have anything, and you thought, okay, Nintendo's finally figuring it out. They're pushing to that. Then the DS, obviously. DS had native voice chat on the console for certain games, but it had voice chat on a Wi-Fi only console. It wasn't, any other way to connect. And it had really cool online multiplayer features. I loved playing Mario Kart DS with my friends, where they can download the game. They didn't have to have the game themselves. They could download just the multiplayer part to their consoles, and we could play online together. I mean, that was just, crazy, and you figured Nintendo's slowly getting it. Slowly, but they're getting it. And then you got the 3DS, which pushed it even more. A lot more features. You got YouTube and Hulu. I mean, not Hulu, but Netflix and whatnot. So it got apps that were web-based. The online multiplayer was improved on the 3DS. You also had more voice chat. One of my favorite games, voice chatting on the 3DS, was Heroes of Ruin. I talk about that game all the time, and I wish more people would have bought it and played it. But it's just looking at Nintendo themselves, their own standards for online. And the Wii U obviously brought a lot of cool features. It brought in the Miiverse. It had a lot of apps, obviously Netflix and Crunchyroll, all kinds of stuff that came to that system. It was very connected, had video chat. I mean, it was like, yes, Nintendo was getting it. They're slowly getting it, but they're getting it. And then we get to the Switch, and it is the most bare-boned console of all times when it comes to these features. Now, I talk about features. I've talked about them before, how I don't care about certain features. I don't care, but that doesn't mean just because I don't care that this console shouldn't have them. At this point, that Nintendo should be building upon what they did before and should have them. And the Switch is one of the most bare-bone consoles ever, and you would think a console that is a handheld, also in hybrid, where you can take it on the go, but you can have it at home. You would think it would adapt some of the things from the 3DS, adapt some things from the Wii U, but it really hasn't at this point, and it's kind of frustrating to see that. Even, like I said, even though I don't care as much personally for what the console does, but it's kind of frustrating to see that, because this is a console that should be pushing online and capabilities, especially being that it's a kind of quote-unquote tablet-based console, and it hasn't really done that, and that is really disappointing to see that. Now we have online the service coming, and what we know about it isn't much, and you expect there to be more, especially after them pushing it back. And for all the people that complained about what the Wii U couldn't do connectivity wise, for them to be really quiet right now, I just don't understand that. To me, it's crazy. There was a lot of screaming during the Wii U, and I hear none of it. Now with the Wii U, I gave it, like I said, I was giving it more of a pass because they were doing things. They were taking what they did to some degree and kind of building on them. Yeah, they stepped back in a couple of ways, but you could see that Nintendo wanted to have this online infrastructure. They wanted to have this online connectivity with its players, especially with things like Miiverse. So I was kind of not as crazy on it about it. But, voice chat was a thing. Anytime somebody had a movement or whatever they wanted to push, I was in there, even though I didn't care as much personally, But here we are, here we are. And for a company that has the past that Nintendo has, we should not be where we are. They should not be where they are. And I'm holding them to their own standards again, not to the industry standards, what they should be held to. But, because Nintendo's kind of coasted on their own kind of path, I've kind of given them a pass on certain things. And at this point, it's ridiculous, for them to not know what they should have. You thought with the certain acquisitions like DNA, they'd be where they needed to be, but they're not there. And it's frustrating. And now I have to pay $20 for a service I don't fully understand, that doesn't really do much as far as I'm concerned. Nothing that moves me anyway. Obviously, they have the NES games online. I'm sure they're gonna add more to it, but they shouldn't have to add to it to get me excited. Right from the gate, it should be a thing that's really exciting for me. And playing Balloon Fight or Mario Brothers online, Super Mario, like, that's not moving me at this point. Give us some N64, you know, give us some GameCube. That's the system you definitely missed out on as far as the online multiplayer goes. There's a system that you can bring people to. You can bring a service out with those games that would really, I think, would make a lot of people happy, because like I said, we sat around looking over our shoulders during the GameCube era, watching everybody else play online, and we had all these great games that we couldn't play online. So here was an opportunity to, all right, let's bring those games back. Let's make that the incentive, is to have the GameCube finally online. Like I said, this is not to start a movement or to get people to feel the way I feel, but I'm going to tell you how I feel, because, you know, this is my channel and that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to walk on eggshells or try to placate to people or you know, try to tell people what they want to hear. That's not how I get down. It's one of the reasons I feel like I'm not a mainstream YouTuber at this point, because I rub some people the wrong way that maybe would help me out, help me get bigger, but I rub people the wrong way because I tell the truth. I can't help it. That's just who I am, and I'm always gonna be that way. And, you know, I'm always gonna be true to myself. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I'm not gonna lie to myself. So Nintendo Online at this point is very disappointing. What they're showing right now is still disappointing. At some point, hopefully they get what they need to get, but they should be there already ready. That's how I feel about it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you agree with me, disagree with me? Let me know how you feel, because that's what I'm gonna do to you. So yeah, thank you for watching and listening as always, and I'll see you fools next time. Peace out.